Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 222. Podcast Archive, episode 98, Emotional Honesty, the Backbone of Healthy Assertiveness. Well, welcome back as we finish out this month with an episode all about how we need to be authentic and emotionally honest if we want to be assertive. But before we get into this episode, I'm so excited to share that my course is going to be finally ready to launch next week. The self-study component consists of 12 comprehensive modules, which cover all the pieces required to become more assertive and confident. Some of them we've talked about here on the show already. If you want to have healthier relationships with yourself and others, if you want to feel better about yourself, and go after the things in life that you've been holding yourself back from. And for a limited time, I'm going to be offering a free upgrade to the group coaching experience, which I think is pretty wonderful. So just hit the link in the show notes to sign up and get your discount and your free upgrade. If you have any questions on this at all, just send me an email or message me on social. I'd be happy to answer them. So in episode 98, we discuss how being brave means risking being open, being honest, maybe confronting someone, maybe setting boundaries with others, maybe asking for what we need. The ability to do these things, I think, are crucial if we want to have healthy relationships. We explore that how to be assertive means to be genuine and therefore emotionally honest. It's the best way, but not always the easiest, nor is it always well received, mostly by people who themselves are afraid to be open. But we know we can't truly be confident without it. We know we can't negotiate needs and create trust without it. And we know we can't grow unless we get real. Real with ourselves and real with others. So here we go. Here's episode 98. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 98. Emotional Honesty, the Backbone of Healthy Assertiveness. So this month, we're going to revisit one of my favorite topics, and I think a very important topic to empowerment and the essence of owning it in the moment, assertiveness. I think assertiveness is so misunderstood. So this month, we're going to flesh out what it is, what it isn't, what it looks like in real time, and most importantly, how to develop healthy assertiveness for yourself or tweak where you are. Okay, so, it's so easy to express who we really are authentically, genuinely, vulnerably, if everyone around you is like-minded in that regard and just as brave as you are. And hopefully your life is becoming one where you have at least a few folks around you to vulnerably connect with, who know you and love you anyway, or maybe because of who you are, if you're lucky. I don't think we can have healthy self-esteem without assertiveness. I think those two go hand in hand. You've heard me say many times, stand in your truth, speak your truth, say what you mean what you say, have your insides match your outsides, so that you can feel confident and that others can feel emotionally safe enough to connect with you. And also, what we often forget is it's usually one person who opens the door to authenticity, bravery, vulnerability, deep connection in a conversation. So whether it's you or whether you require someone else to open the door and make it safe for you, or whether even when they open the door, you can't walk through it at all. Today and the rest of this month, we're going to be talking about doing an assessment around where you truly think you are where you struggle, why that might be the case, why a lot of that's not your fault, and what are some tools that you can use to practice becoming more assertive, more respectful, more emotionally honest and grounded in your communication with others. So this requires being brave. Remember, we've talked about all the lovely defense mechanisms we come up with are self-protective, and kids develop those for a damn good reason. Because it wasn't safe at the dinner table to share how you really feel, or to own that you did something wrong. God forbid you made a mistake, or were scared, or were mad at yourself, or were angry with a parent because they weren't acting right. To express your vulnerable needs, to grieve. But these very defense mechanisms get in the way of having healthy relationships with ourselves first and with other grown-ups who want to have a genuine, real, respectful relationship with you. So today we're going to get into an aspect of assertiveness that I call emotional honesty. Telling people what you really think, what you really feel, what you really need, what you're really struggling with underneath it all. Now, of course, there are moments where you may not want to do that. I mean, we're understanding different levels of assertiveness here, depending on the environment, depending on who's across from you. Of course, you want to be appropriate. You want to have good emotional boundaries. But revealing the self is the only way we're going to have true connection. So being brave means risking, right? Being emotionally honest is very brave. It is so revealing. It's putting yourself out there. It's showing someone your insides. I think it's the opposite of manipulation. Because in manipulation, we put everything on the other person. Because of you, I. It's the opposite of passive-aggressive or aggressive behavior. Passive-aggressive, where we beat around the bush around what we really mean, what we really need, what we're really upset about. Maybe we use lots of sarcasm, lots of digs embedded in a compliment, that kind of thing. Or maybe aggressive, lashing out and giving someone all our power over our well-being. Being very emotionally reactive and angry is an example of that. So being brave means keeping the focus on you, not them. I always say healthy boundaries are when we tell people about us, what we think, feel, need, choose, and believe. Ball goes to them. We let go of control of that outcome. And that's why it's brave, and that's why it entails risk. Because who knows what the other person's going to do or not do. Being brave means risking rejection, therefore, ridicule sometimes, anxiety on the part of the other person because they don't know what to do with what you just said, or abandonment, either emotionally abandoning you in the moment where they don't even acknowledge what you say or use empathy and reflect back that you make sense, or actual physical abandonment. They can't handle it and they walk. Sometimes, and the most obvious example of this is the whistleblower in the workplace, is punishment. You get punished for speaking up. You get punished for speaking truth to power. You get punished for calling someone out on something they did that was wrong. You get punished for saying no or asking for what you need. Emotional honesty requires you first to get honest with yourself. And I think this can take time and effort, along with maybe some therapy, some deep grief work, other safe people to help you open up more. It takes tons and tons and tons of practice over time. And that's mainly for, I think, a couple of things. One is desensitization to the fear that it's going to be awful and you're going to die. So we have to have experiences where it goes okay, or it goes rather well. And actually we have the other part is we experience maybe some good things where the other person is like, wow, I'm so glad you told me that. Or maybe they share their heart in return, and you walk away from that communication feeling more connected and bonded with them. You feel more alive, is what a lot of people share. And you feel like you make sense, and they make sense. Emotional honesty means, again, talking about you and not them. You're talking about what is really going on. Maybe you're not fine today, okay? Maybe everything isn't great today. Maybe it was yesterday until something happened this morning that was very upsetting or traumatic or scary or just annoying. But a lot of times we can become so programmed to keep it on the surface, put a smile on, tell people what they want to hear, because guess what? That keeps them from you letting them in to hurt you. Because hiding how you feel comes from fear, and that is learned, and maybe experiences when it didn't go so well. The other aspect is, what did you learn growing up? And even in your current relationships, you can assess those this month as well. I mean, like, did your family model emotional honesty? Did people own their feelings? Did they show any vulnerability, any struggle? Did they allow themselves to really express feelings? Some parents don't. They're pretty stoic because they've been through some trauma and they learned how to guard their heart. So then maybe they don't often express joy or excitement or just cracking up at something hilarious or sadness or tiredness. You know, the full range of affect, or maybe even healthy anger at times. Not to scare the kids, but just saying, guys, I'm okay. I'm just really angry about what the neighbor did yesterday, kind of thing. Or did you grow up learning passivity? Stuff your feelings. It's okay. I don't deserve to ask for what I need or to be angry. God forbid we should hold people accountable for what they did or didn't do. Or maybe lashing out, blaming others is what you heard at the dinner table. Maybe you learned how to paste the smile on and suck it up and step over it and be fine. Life isn't fair, remember? Or maybe the opposite. Your dad did nothing but yell or react over even small things. Everything was horrible. Or maybe your mom fell apart when you got mad or upset. She couldn't handle it. Not great ways for you to want to be emotional or emotionally available. Because that meant identifying with perhaps being a jerk or emotionally needy. And what we don't realize is we can often swing it in whole direction, take it all the way there, that if I express myself, you say, it means I'm going to be needy. And that's not true. There's needy and then there's healthy. There's awfulizing and then there's having a moment where you're struggling, where the rest of the week you're in pretty good mood and you're able to experience things positively. So what are some other fears that might keep us silent or emotionally dishonest? And I know that sounds like a negative term, emotionally dishonest, but I do want you to get kind of disgusted with it because it really doesn't have any great purpose in our life. There are those rare moments when you're up against a toxic person. Okay, all bets are off in terms of how you handle yourself. And no, I don't want you opening yourself up and being extremely vulnerable with them. But the rest of your life? I think it is fair to say that emotional dishonesty only causes problems, doesn't solve them for us. So one of the fears that I hear all the time is, Mary, I'm going to burden people and I don't want to burden them. You know, my sister's got so much going on. My best friend's busy. So it's a fear and an assumption that we're going to burden someone. And that comes from growing up, not being able to count on parents to be strong enough for you to lean, for you to fall apart when you were little. So you assume and you template to everyone else, which is what our brain does. Well, that I would be a burden on everybody. And I say, let them tell you that they can't be there for you right now. Or this is too big, you got to take it to therapy. Or, let them tell you yay or nay. Don't assume and don't speak for people. How would you feel if someone said that they never told you some really important stuff because they didn't want to burden you and therefore shut you out? So detach and let them make the choice. I also hear, well, even if I'm not burdening them, Mary, why would they be interested in what's going on with me? And I'm like, wow, And that's their good friend, or that's their brother, or their mom. And my answer is, that's a whole different session. If we're saying that you're not sure they're even interested in what is really going on with you, what kind of relationship is that? It's a really surface one in my book. Another big fear is, what if I don't do it right? I don't even know how to express it that way, Mary. I don't even know how to get it out. And that's okay. And I say, well, that's why we work on it and we practice. All we're doing is practicing new behaviors until they become the new normal. Another fear of sharing is embarrassment, because we don't have it all together. And maybe we have perfectionistic tendencies and we really want that looking good on the outside to stay that way, where we have that codependent false self, but the real self is on the inside really struggling. And then a big reason is you were punished or shamed in the past when you were vulnerable or honest, like a kid speaking the truth. Because kids, until they learn otherwise, say exactly what they think, feel, and need, and they have no problem being very direct about it, until we teach them not to, perhaps. One of my favorite authors, Robert Burney, describes some ways that we shy away from being emotionally honest, and I think this is so true. Speaking in the third person is a very obvious one, because if you speak in the third person, you keep people at arm's length and you're not really owning it, so you're not putting yourself out there. Like he says, someone will say, you just kind of feel hurt when that happens, or you just struggle. And he says that's not a personal statement, and it doesn't carry the power of speaking in the first person, or the vulnerability, I would say. So first person would say, I felt hurt when that happened. Now, see, that could be really provocative. What if you're saying that to the person who hurt you right now? So listen to yourself talk and kind of notice if you do that, or notice when other people do that. Okay. And try to practice saying bring it back to you. Okay, wait a minute. What about me? I feel, I need, I'm struggling. I don't like, I don't want, I love. It means you're owning your feelings. The other thing that Robert says we do is storytelling. He says a lot of people tell entertaining stories to avoid feelings. They may respond to a feeling statement by saying, like, I remember way back in the day when I, da-da-da-da. There's no real emotional content or connection to that person per se. They're telling you about it. They're telling you about that and them. They're not telling you about self. After years of teaching assertiveness to individuals and groups, what I learned along the way is I can give you wonderful tools about how to be assertive, how to speak, what to say, when to say it. And you'll be able to do that in a controlled environment with me, but when you get out in the real world, you won't. And so what I learned is we have to be at peace with who we're bringing to the table first before we can be assertive. And that's why I think emotional honesty is a big chunk of this, and that's why we're starting out the month talking about it. We can't lie to ourselves and be truthful to another. One of the big areas of emotional honesty, obviously, is owning and expressing your needs. And these are not wants, they're needs. And here are a few of them. And I encourage you that if you're not familiar, go online. There's plenty of lists of needs that you can tap into. And what's kind of neat is to go through and do two things. One, recognize if there are any that surprise you, like, I need that. And two, are you acknowledging them and getting them met in your life? Okay. Maybe not every day, but just enough to feel satiated. So some of them are safety and security, feeling safe, having a roof over your head, not being stalked, those kinds of things, feeling safe, belongingness, having a group or people or a community to belong to. That is a big part of our identity. Another need is trust. to have some basic trust in ourselves and in at least a handful of relationships. We need to feel acceptance. We need to have some kind of achievement in our life. We all need meaning and connection. We need respect. We need to, I think, be able to respect ourselves and have people in our life where we have respect for because they earn our respect, especially people who matter like parents and bosses and leaders in our life. Helps us feel safe, helps us feel guided. When you're growing up or when you're new on the job, you're modeling, you're emulating, hopefully, people that are further along the path than you. I think we need to be challenged. I think we need to be loved. I think we need to be cherished. I think we need to have boundaries so we don't feel crazy on the inside. The list goes on and on. All you need to know is that their needs, not wants, and we will get them met in healthy ways or unhealthy ways. For example, the typical one is kids. If they're not getting any positive attention, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to get plenty of negative. So their needs, not wants. And then the second thing is we don't have a world full of mind readers out there, and we can't read others' minds. We need to express what we need, and we need to own it and not put them on someone else either. That's a big thing too. There are needs that we do need to get from other people. Healthy mirroring, for example. You need the other to mirror back a reflection of you. You can't always give that to yourself. But if you're not taking care of yourself and you're not taking time out, you're not nurturing your body and your mind and your soul, then you're angry at your partner because they're too busy for you. That's a problem. Because we are responsible for taking care of our own needs first. And then there are appropriate needs that are met from others. Another aspect of the ability to be emotionally honest is owning your grief work. We know we're not doing that when we do a lot of lashing out, a lot of medicating, a lot of stuffing your feelings so that you can have panic attacks or depressive episodes later. I know that sounds harsh, but that's what happens. When you're doing the I'm fine, I'm over it, I forgave him already mantra, it's bunk. We need to share with safe people who have good boundaries and empathy skills the kicking and screaming to acceptance around loss, around change, because change is loss, around old wounds, new traumas, and everything in between. It is a surrender to what is. It's very vulnerable work. Another thing we need to do is own and express our boundaries. What you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. That's how you learn how to negotiate too. Boundaries around your time, your body, your energy, your mind, your spirit. You don't put boundaries on others. You keep it about you. Whatever your bottom line is, let them figure out how to get there. If they even want to. That is their choice. And speaking of choices, practicing detachment. I don't think we can connect vulnerably without healthy separateness first. So wrong is, oh, it's all your fault. If you hadn't made me mad, I wouldn't have done that. That is so not true. You chose. And we can't put what is ours on other people and feel good about ourselves or have healthy relationships. It won't work. Detachment from what other people are doing or not doing. Detachment from outcomes, from circumstances. Anything that is not within your control. Anything outside of you, really. Working on your control issues goes hand in hand with working on healthy boundaries and detachment. What you're afraid to let go of and why, how that ties into grieving, all of that. And in essence, I think emotional honesty is about owning all of your choices. And within that can be some anxiety, but also some wonderful power. Because then that's where we find ourselves. And when we find ourselves, I think we want to change unhealthy behaviors. I think we want better and we need better and we want to change to have better. And we want better connections. We want honesty. We want truth. We want positivity. We want connection. So some things to practice to get you into the mode of greater emotional honesty is really just taking a moment and thinking, what am I really thinking deep down underneath this surface statement? Like if you get frustrated and say, I just can't believe this. What's going on underneath? Fear, disappointment, anger, sadness, maybe? You're metabolizing what just happened? Those are the vulnerable things underneath what you're thinking and feeling. And the I just statement can really help you do that. I just need to feel respected. I'm just so hurt that happened. I'm just struggling to accept this. I like the I'm just because it takes any kind of judgment out of it. It doesn't make it about anyone else anymore. It's just about you. Do you take that thought or that feeling and you say, why does that make sense to me? Why is that congruent with what's going on right now? Why would anyone else feel the same way? Sometimes if you grew up in manipulative relationships where you got talked out of your reality, where you got questioned a lot or ignored when you expressed what you thought and felt, you may actually doubt that what you think and feel is valid. So you want to, at first, say, okay, if someone worth their salt were in my shoes, would they be pissed? Why? Would they be angry? Why? Would they be hurt? Why? You need that sometimes external validation first. But I want you to tell yourself, well, no wonder I'm pissed, because I want you to validate yourself as well. What are you feeling deep down? And underneath is usually fear and shame. And underneath everything is usually about us, not them. Why does that make sense? And call it. I mean, here's where, we might be a little disproportionate and awfulize, right? So don't minimize it. Don't blow it up and dramatize it and embellish the truth, but just call it. Make it dead on. And especially if it's shame, not feeling good about yourself, it's really important to get that out of you and share it with another human being so that you can allow it to dissipate and you can heal. I love the phrase, share not shame, what a difference a letter makes. When we keep it within ourselves, it just festers and grows and gets embellished, and it impacts everything you think and do and feel. And that brings up another important point. We want to pay attention to what our buttons are, what our old buttons are. A lot of times where you had trauma, or you were wounded, or you have fear or trust issues in old relationships or insecurities. Because we want to look at how much old stuff might be being triggered by a current situation, because you want to figure out what's old or what's genuinely something you need to confront someone in front of you today about. And finally, I want you to think about what you need to do to take care of yourself. Maybe you need to speak your feelings. Maybe you need to think about what you want to say before you share it. Maybe you need to figure out what your boundaries are instead of trying to change them in your mind, or get them to be different, get them to see, get them to understand. So those are some areas that are helpful to look at and work on with safe people. Journaling is a great way too, because you're just reflecting back your truth to you on paper, and it makes it real and gets it outside of you. And here are some things to remember. Number one, it's always going to be awkward and stilted when you first start practicing this, because it takes time until you can find ways to express yourself that feel genuine to you and feel good. I like to ask clients to sit down first and write like 3 to 5 adjectives that they would like to describe how they want to come across to people and why. So you have to give this some thought and think about history and maybe why this matters to you, because that's important too. So take a moment here and listen to some common ones and see where you might be and why. Maybe you want to be kind but firm. You want to come across as loving and confident, connecting and calm, grounded but decisive. Maybe proud of yourself, genuine, thoughtful, heartfelt, determined, honest, congruent, reliable. So those are some positive leaning ones, I think, just to get you started thinking about how you want to come across and why. Now be careful. We can do this and get into the people-pleasing mode. Well, I don't want to upset anyone and all of that. That is not what I'm talking about. Healthy boundaries are you would come across, let's say, as kind and as loving and as emotionally honest as you could be, using an I statement, and people can still get upset. So I want you to keep the focus on you. And I want you to think about why you want to be those things. It's often how you were treated growing up or how you wished you were treated growing up that can compel you to want to come across in certain ways. Because guess what? You know what it feels like to be on the other side, to be on the receiving end. And that is something to take into account too, because no matter what our intentions are, the net effect is the net effect on the other person. And we should own that if we want to have better connections with people. So there's the net effect. We don't have control over the outcome, but we can try to have healthy control around who we want to be. Okay, so those are some positive ways you might want to be. How about the ones you don't want to be like? Some common ones is I don't want to come across as controlling or harsh, abusive, shaming, manipulative, passive-aggressive, or maybe like too passive, easily swayed, a doormat. I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to be uncaring. I don't want to be loud. I don't want to be meek either. I don't want to come across as afraid. Maybe I don't want to be reactive. I want to be proactive and responsive. All right. So those are some things I want you to think about. Maybe you're already right where you want to be, and that's wonderful. Maybe you want to tweak some things, or maybe you haven't even started this process. No matter where you are, what's cool is this just takes heartfelt work, and you can get there. It just takes practice, practice, practice. But being emotionally honest is really important, and you're probably not going to start out that way, but the more you work on it, the better you'll get. My old mentor used to say, you can't heal what isn't real, and it isn't real until you feel it. You can't do this work in your head. And you can't connect with other people really from your head. You need to feel it in your heart and in your gut, and you need to sit in the shit for a while. We need to hear and we need to feel and express our deep fear, loss, joy, and pain, our wonder, our disappointment, our regret, and our yearning, and every other emotion in between all those. Because that is our truth. I think being emotionally honest takes commitment. I think it takes a lot of practice, a lot of screwing it up, getting better and better at it, and incorporating it slowly into who you are. Eventually, it will be how you operate. And then, after a while, being anything else will then feel awkward and dishonest and yucky and disgusting, and you're going to want to get back quickly to being open, being vulnerable, being honest. Like down the road, let's say you're working on this and you just have a moment where you regress a little bit. Everyone does. You're going to want to walk back in the room and say, I am so sorry. I was being 5. This is what was going on for me. Because we can't heal anything that isn't vulnerable. Because if it isn't vulnerable, it isn't real. So today we talked about how a big part of assertiveness means being genuine and therefore being emotionally honest. We explored the different areas of risk, including setting limits to sharing shame. We talked about how it's the best way, but not always the easiest, nor is it always well received. Remember, mostly by people who they themselves are afraid to be open. But I don't think we can be assertive or truly confident and at peace without it. So join us for the rest of the month as we get into more aspects of assertiveness coming up. And we have our 100th episode coming up in 2 weeks, which is pretty exciting. It's been a wonderful journey, and I so appreciate all of you who have come along with me. Well, there you go. This episode really gets into how we need to vulnerably own and express our feelings, share our thoughts, our needs, our issues, and our shame with another healthy enough person if we want to heal, change, and grow. It's awkward and scary at first, often messy, but the more we practice, I think the better we become, and the more we naturally desire more meaningful connections. We start to lean towards wanting to share more of who we are, to tell on ourselves when we don't do so well, and to keep it clean, as I say, so we can feel good about ourselves. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you grabbed something that was useful, and I hope to see you in that course. All right, pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you could begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.